Okay, we will begin. Read my traditional introductory paragraph. As chair of the Water Sewer Advisory Committee, I find that the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Public notice for this meeting was posted on the town website and on the bulletin board of the town offices at 10 Front Street. As provided in that public notice, the public may access the meeting online and via phone. Please note that all votes taken this evening during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, also state if there is anyone in the room with you and who that person might be, which is required under the right to know law. I will begin. I'm Bob Kelly, the chair of the committee. I'm alone in the room. Ben?
Present and alone in the room.
Kelly?
I'm Kelly Warner and I'm alone in the room.
Carl?
Carl Wickstrom, and I am alone in the room.
Mark? Unmute yourself, please. Mark?
Mark Fabian, I'm alone.
Thank you. Molly?
Molly Cowan, Select Board Rep. I'm alone in the room.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to those going to be discussing the abatements. We do have 5 abatements this evening. The town sent them to us in a particular order, so we will just go with that order. If anyone has a time constraint at this point, raise your hand and we can shuffle the deck, but otherwise we'll just take them as they came in. Seeing no alternative requests, we'll start with you, Ike. 40 Hampton Road. We'll go through the details as we have them, and then if you want to weigh in at all, you're welcome to do that. But in summary, if you've had a chance to review these, but basically it's a single family home. There was a leaky toilet in November. The homeowner noted that there was some difficulty in discovering the leak, but when they did, the toilet was repaired. And you see it was a very spiked one-time usage, and then it went back to normal usage. Does anyone on the committee have any comments or discussion on the abatement for 40 Hampton Road? Ike, do you have anything to say or anything to add other than what you had presented in your abatement request?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Any predisposition by the committee? I mean, this would appear to be a somewhat of an unavoidable accident. However, in the past, a leaky toilet is the responsibility of the homeowner. Lately, we have been granting 50% abatement on the excess water and sewer usage. Unless someone reminds me differently, that would appear to be a similar application to this. We're having trouble finding our voices this evening.
I would agree with that.
Does that work with you?
That makes sense.
A motion, Ben?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to abate half of the water and sewer fee for this bill.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So like basically what we've done, there's a calculation that we would abate. We will basically meet you halfway. So the excess usage that you incurred during that period, the town will abate half of that So half of it is still your responsibility. And as you know from the water and sewer policy or the select board's policy, that the homeowner is responsible for everything in their unit, but we've taken to over the last year or so being a little bit more understanding that things are a little bit not normal. So that's where we are right now. So what we'd be looking at is an abatement of $297.17 off of that bill, which is half of the excess from your normal usage. I will take a roll call vote. Ben?
Yes. Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So you'll be getting a notice, Ike, for the abatement of $297.17.
Okay.
Okay. On to number 2, which is 137 Epping Road. I'm sorry. Yeah, 137 Epping Road. So, Lisa, are you the owner of the?
The co-owner.
Co-owner. Okay.
Co-owner. Yes.
So you can speak. You can speak on behalf of the ownership, as it were.
Yes, I can do that.
Excellent. So again, it sounds like there was a leak, but you had to quarantine because of COVID.
It was actually 3. Yes, within that short period of time, there was 3 of us that were quarantined. And when we realized that it was running, and then trying to find a plumber we couldn't find a plumber. And the toilet itself, we were afraid to do anything with it and make it worse. So
were you open? Were you open during that time?
Off and on, yes. When the girls were here, like the couple of girls that could work, they were here, but they're not the owners or like that. So, and as soon as we realized what the problem was, then we got a new toilet, and then we could not find a plumber to do it in a, quick fashion.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get to is if you were quarantined, why you weren't advised to actually just turn off the water to the toilet?
Because I have we have 2 subcontractors that work for us, and they came in and worked, and I don't think that they realized what was happening.
So was it just a flapper or a leaky? What was the leak?
I don't know. It was running. It wasn't a leak. Like, it was just running.
Yeah,
Sounds like an overflow issue.
Yeah, something on the interior mechanism or something. So you couldn't get a plumber to come out at all, huh?
We could not. And I didn't, we didn't realize that, it'd be such a big deal. We had other stuff on our, mind, but I never in a million years thought I would get a bill like we did. And we've been here 21 years, and we've never asked for anything or had a problem or so. And we were closed down for 3.5 months in the spring, so it's been a rough year.
So how long between when the town let you know about the high usage to when you were able to get a plumber? Roughly what was that time frame?
We had already got the plumber. And then we got the bill afterwards.
With a notice saying that the bill was going to be huge.
So
There was a notice that said it was going to be rather large. And at first we were like, didn't realize that something like that would be like just astronomical. And then I called when we got the bill, I called the town, and this is what led us to tonight.
So that receipt that you gave us, is that the plumber? What is that?
That's for the toilet.
Oh, the toilet.
Yes.
Okay. And when did the plumber actually fix it?
It was
A week after the date on that receipt.
a week after the date on that receipt.
Okay. So everything happened in early December, and the town didn't let you know his high usage until the end of September or December.
Right.
So the horse had already left the barn, so to speak. Anybody have any comments on the committee?
Seems like a reasonable attempt was made when they identified it, and given the circumstances, it seems like we might follow suit with the 50%.
Does that sound reasonable? Does anybody have a?
Well, it concerns me a little bit that there was no, well, maybe she just didn't know how, but there was no effort made to turn off the water to the leaking toilet. And then at least, even at night when there was no one there, I guess it just kept on running all night long.
Right.
Well, there wasn't a leak. Like, there was no water anywhere from what the.
No, I don't mean leaking out onto the floor. I mean leaking through the toilet to the sewer,
The mechanism,
which is why your bill is so high.
Yeah, the mechanism in your
I see.
toilet tank
Okay.
was probably faulty.
So what you could have done is, turn it off when it was not in use and then turned it back on when you needed it. And that would have cut your bill dramatically if you had just done that. And also, cut the load on the system and conserve water for us. I just wish business owners and homeowners would be more cognizant that even if you can't fix something right away, you can at least turn off the issue and keep it from going on and on.
Right.
I think I'm preaching to the choir here with this committee, but the public needs to be aware that there are ways to keep it from just going on and on, even if you can't get somebody to fix it right away.
Right.
Well, I know that now.
Well, maybe we can put something in the bills. They can put a notice in the bills about, good plumbing management or something.
Plumbing class.
Yeah, I think that would be nice because like waiting until you have this big problem to find this out and then say, well, if you'd known, but people don't know, but helping them with getting them some of that information in advance would be good.
Or at a minimum.
And I think the other thing is, and I'm not, I don't want to make this a COVID thing, but where I was out actually the week before Christmas, which is the worst time to be out for my business, and other things that were going on, I literally just did not give it much thought because I didn't think it was, a big of a deal is obviously what it was. And then when I tried to find a plumber, there wasn't one to be had. So, I just hoping for some help where it's been such a hard year.
Yeah, like I say, I think in the past, what we have done is sort of met the homeowner or business owner halfway, where we would abate half of the excess usage that you had, which in this case would be $607.29 would be abated from your bill. So you would be responsible for some since it was your system, but we would, in the interest of what's going on with everybody over the past year, we've tried to be a little bit more understanding that people may not be focused on their internal plumbing.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate that.
I'll make a motion to that effect, Carl.
I definitely learned something.
And I will second that for an abatement of half of the excess usage, $607.29. I will take a roll call vote. Ben?
I agree.
Kelly,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Molly, you still with us?
Yep, I.
And I vote aye. So you'll get a notice that you'll be abated that amount, Lisa.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Shirley, thanks for coming on.
All right.
Bob, I think maybe we just want to remind people that this is a one-time and 10-year abatement, right? So
Yeah, that's a good point.
it is.
The policy does stipulate, and in this case, you were reasonable to request one because it was a decent amount of money, but there is just, there's one abatement in 10 years. So
We've had 21.
hopefully that is somehow conveyed to residents, and I will make a note that gets passed along as well.
Well, and we being a salon, we've had, different things with the sinks or whatever, and we realize that is on us. Like so in 21 years, like I said, this is the first time we've ever asked for help. So I really appreciate it.
Shirley, good luck.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Me too. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Ike. So we'll do the next one is 21 First Street.
Ike, the Cleveland window guy.
Yes, Lisa. Sorry.
Ike, you're still on with us, please. If you could mute yourself. Lauren, who are you representing, Lauren?
Yes, I'm representing Island Hospitality Management, the Hampton.
Okay, so for Hampton Inn. So you'll be, why don't we take you, since it doesn't look like, I don't see Ann Curran on, so we'll take you next.
Okay, thank you.
So that you don't have to wait too much. So, yeah, if you could explain the high-low meter a little bit. It was a little bit confusing.
Yeah, this is a pretty large property. This is a hotel, obviously. It's a Hampton Inn Suites, and we do have a high-low meter, so it's a bypass. So anytime you have additional consumption coming through, we're going to go through that bypass meter. In this case, the spa has an autofill, and the property initially felt when the town of Exeter reached out to me, actually Desiree reached out to me regarding high consumption on the Reed. The property initially felt that the leak was related actually to the autofill off, and obviously consumption continued to be higher than expected. Leak detection ended up coming out and found that there was a leak in the main line, and it was not related to that autofill.
So it was draining excessively, yes, and then it was automatically filling,
yep,
to keep the level up.
Correct. And any consumption, any of that water was actually going underneath the pool, which I guess must be connected to that spa area. I'm actually on site. I'm the account manager for 180 properties that we own. And apparently that water was going underneath the pool deck. So I believe it was going right into the ground, and nobody on site, the chief engineer that would walk the property daily, was not seeing that water since it was completely underground.
Huh, interesting. So are you looking for an abatement on both the high side and the low side?
If you are willing to, yes. Obviously, this period ran from like May until we actually got it fixed in February. So we did have high consumption for multiple months. If you are willing to grant an adjustment for one bill, that is all we are looking for. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to adjust for 9 months of billing.
Yeah, it looked like the highest usage was in that summer period. I was trying to, because you had given us the room rental information,
right? Yes.
Which was about roughly 74% year over year.
Yes.
So I was trying to do a comparison of last year to this year with that 74%, and some of the numbers worked out and some of them didn't. Like some of them were a lot lower than 74%. So your lack of rentals didn't seem to impact it that much.
Right. I guess what I was told is, and we've been dealing with this overall with all hotels is, we're looking at lack of rentals. I'm expecting a property's consumption to go down, not quite as much as the year prior, but I am expecting consumption to go down. We did have more guests at the hotel, more families traveling, people who are working from home traveling with their children. There was a different mix of people in the hotel than you would normally have due to the pandemic.
So explain to me it says property has a compound meter with high and low flows. So just explain what you have two different meters and how are they oriented in that system, and how are they both impacted, I guess, as it were?
Let me pull that up real quick. I'm going to pull up some of my notes here and look them over real quick, if you don't mind.
I mean, anybody on the committee, Carl, do you have an explanation for that?
No, that's one of the questions I was going to ask. And the other is, it sounds like the leak did not go into the sewer system, but instead was underground. Right. Which would make us want to look more at abating more of the sewer than of the water if we stick with previous precedent.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of what the high versus low, what that means.
Okay, so I'm pulling up my notes here. It's a 3-inch compound meter, which means that generally that low is going to be, I'm looking to see if I have specific meter numbers here.
I think what it is that the meter is not very accurate at the lower flows. And so or it's not very accurate at the reason it's compound is that, if you had it all going through one meter, it'd be spinning so fast that it would have too much drag on it. So it kicks over to a higher flow capacity section of the meter when you get the higher flow. That's my guess. That's just a total guess, but that's what makes sense to me about that. The other question I had, and if I can remember what my other question was, it mentions somewhere in there, it mentions an offset meter or what do you call it, compensation meter? I forget what we call that. Deduct meter. Right. Can you tell me what that deduct meter is for?
Let me look and see if I have any notes on what that deduct is for. Generally, when we have deducts at properties, they're for cooling towers or irrigation. So see, although I believe this property has a separate irrigation meter, let me double check on that. I don't want to speak. Yes. So I believe it is for a cooling tower that's on the top of that's at the property.
So I was under the impression we didn't allow deducts for cooling towers. I'm all for them, but I was under the impression we didn't allow that. Is that not so? Well,
we've sort of discussed expanding the deduct meters for the residential side into the commercial side. I think we're going to be having a discussion about that later on with the staff. Because there are obviously some significant implications on that. So right now it's sort of in a state of flux. Matt Berube, are you available at all on your computer? I see you sort of logged in. Well, because he has a pretty good handle on some of the commercial folks. So which of the, so it looks like, just looking at the bill.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah, Matt, are you familiar with the plumbing at the Hampton Inn as far as how this high-low flow thing goes?
Not specifically at this one. I think there's a deduct there. Again, we had some that were grandfathered in before the rules changed where we didn't allow commercial ones. So I don't know whether this was in place before that. Plus, I think they might have an internal one for their own sake because it's like the way they fill their pool. So there might be something unique to this site itself. But again, it would be grandfathered in. We do not allow deduct meters on commercial properties.
Right.
Did you need something else answered? Sorry.
No, I just was wondering because I know you sometimes have a very crystal clear understanding of some of the commercials, and I was just hoping. But I appreciate the input.
Yep.
We'll get back to you guys in a second.
No problem.
Yeah. So Lauren, the member on our committee, Carl Wickstrom, said, if the water didn't go into the sewer, then we would be predisposed to abating a significant portion of the sewer bill because you didn't use those services. However, this is also sort of under a COVID-related issue that might include water as well. So, we've got a number of different directions we could go.
Okay.
Trying to maybe figure out what the most fair is, both from your perspective as well as, the usage perspective.
Right.
Does anybody have like a brainstorm off the top of their head on this? I'm thinking, if we did 80% abatement of the excess sewer, that it's sort of the same as if we abated half of the excess water and sewer. So it's sort of a wash. I hesitate, without fully understanding the plumbing, to be giving abatements on both the high flow and the low flow meter, because we don't really know what the details of those are.
Well, we know they're getting billed on both. So that's getting added together. They're getting two separate bills. So I would seem to me like we would want to be abating both of them. And
that's a good point.
My inclination is to look at doing 100% of the excess sewer and just letting them eat the water portion, because they did do something wrong. Let that go for so long. So,
okay,
that'd be my inclination.
That's an interesting perspective, Matt.
So I just wanted to explain, a compound meter actually has a high flow and a low flow. The low flow is when there's low usage late at night, and it's going to pick up that one little flush on the other side of the building. The high flow is when they have a leak like this or they're filling their pool. It actually is a more accurate meter. It's going to pick up all flow spectrum through the way they use their water. So a compound meter has a high flow side, low flow. It's all added together, like Carl said, and just becomes their usage. But it's billed as different. We read it as different separate meters.
So, thank you, Matt. So, Carl, would you be thinking about full abatement for excess sewer on both meters?
Yes, that would be my suggestion.
So the $1,099 plus.
Well, after all, they did go for 9 months, as you said, without them. They're not asking for. So I have a tendency to want to be more than lenient on and actually doing the full amount on the sewer portion. However, the water portion, they did go through their pool. So they did use it. So that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
I agree with Carl.
Okay. So if I can frame that as do you want to make the motion, Carl?
Sure, I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we abate 100% of the excess sewer on both the low flow and high flow for this property.
And I can second that.
So that would be $1,099.18 plus $1,408.54. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any other comments on this? Moved and seconded. Ben, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So Lauren, you'll get roughly a $2,600 abatement, which is basically we're giving you a full abatement on the excess sewer usage because ostensibly you didn't use the sewer services that went into the ground. So you'll receive that credit on your next bill.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, thank you, everyone. And let's see, so neither Ann nor Bob McLaughlin are with us. Is that right? Yes. Okay, so we'll go back to 21st Street. Again, basic toilet leak. My only comment on this was it's such a small amount. Do they really want to do their 1 in 10 year for $83?
Is that the 50% number, the $83?
That would be the 50% excess water and sewer.
Well,
and
if you notice on this one, they found this rather rapidly. It only ran for like 3 days, if you think on it, and they found it before they even heard from the water. A week or so before they even heard from the water department.
Right.
I would be interested in doing a much higher percentage of that because I felt like they were very responsible and taking care of it as soon as they knew about it.
Well, I would agree. So even if we did the full abatement, it's $166. They may want to. They
might. At one time, that was like 20% of the maximum almost. So, I don't know, so it's no longer the case.
Well, I'd like to at least give them the option. So without.
Yeah, I'm open to tabling this still.
Without Ann being here, I would like to table it and have the department get back to her and say, do you really want to do this? You only get 1 in 10 years. We would be inclined to abate, $165.63, but maybe you want to hold that in abeyance. So I will give them that option. Okay, last one is 38 Exeter Farms Road.
Sorry, Bob, just a quick note on that one. It just seems consistent with our policy that, we don't, I didn't know that we would do a full abatement if, it still is a user error. They're very quick to find it, but I'm wondering if this would more fall in the 80% as far as what we're going to offer them when we contact them. I thought that we were more leaning toward 80% when, the user did have some error.
I think you would probably be right, Mark. I know Carl was trying to, give them some Benny points for acting quickly, which is great. But you're right. You're absolutely right. The fault still lies with them, even though it was only 3 days. So there, during our discussions, it might be somewhere in between. But whether it's $132 or $165, I think I'd like to give them the option of deferring the abatement in case something bigger comes up down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think if when you contact them, you might, give the full range of what it could possibly be. I mean, even at most, it's going to be 165, and and at the minimum probably is the 50%. So just so they understand what they're giving up their 10-year window for. That's all.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. So we'll table that. And then the last one is, again, 38 Exeter Farms Road. Running toilet and overflowing pipe in a humidifier in a seldom used area of the home. Any enlightening discussion other than the standard. This would seem to fall in the 50% excess water and sewer usage.
That'd be my vote.
Would that be your suggestion, Ben?
Yes.
I'll second that. So we would potentially abate them $398.11. Any further discussion? Ben, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, thank you. That's the that's it for the abatements. The next item of business, I'd like to shuffle things up a little bit. Jen Perry sent me an email, or actually Matt did. They wanted to go over a number of projects that are on the plate for 2021. And there are several members of the public works with us this evening, and like to have them go through their presentations / questions that they may have for the committee. So I'm not sure who's leading the charge here. We'll start with you, Jen Perry, since you're the top of the pyramid.
Well, thank you for allowing us tonight. I know you all have a busy schedule, and we'll try and run through these items as quickly as possible, but we feel that it's important to bring the Water Sewer Advisory Committee up to speed on some pretty major issues that the town is faced with. And we are going to talk about some issues, or not issues, but some opportunities with our Salem Street project that was just approved yesterday at the voting, which we're excited about. An update on the siphons, the sewer siphons crossing the Squamscott River, the Great Bay general permit, and some of the issues involved with our EPA permit, and also some capacity analysis work that we're going to be doing this year. So without any further ado, Paul Vlasic, our town engineer, has been leading and Jen Mates, our town assistant town engineer, have been leading the Salem Street project. And I'd like to pass the baton to them to talk about potential service opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Paul Velocic, town engineer. I'd like to be able to share my screen. I've got a few slides, if that's all right.
Excellent.
Okay, the first project I'd like to talk about is the Salem Street project. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is the overview of the project. We've got the railroad over here north to the top of the screen. And where you see the pink lines is water, sewer, and drainage going to be replaced. The green lines
I can hear you fine, but I do not see the screen.
Uh-oh.
Does everybody else see the screen?
It doesn't seem to be fully sharing.
Okay, let me get out of this and try this again. Oh, wait a minute, I got a better idea. Jen Mates, can you do the screen? Jen Mates, can you do this screen?
She's working on it.
Yes, hold on one sec. I just got to open it up.
Yeah, this is our contingency plan here.
Well, you keep going down in age here. I think my grandson could probably do this really quickly, but he's not here, so sorry.
All right, sorry. I had to download it.
Jen, you want me to try one more time?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Come on.
Beautiful.
All right, can you see that now?
We can. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. Go ahead to the next slide, Jen. This is an overview of the project. We have water improvements, sewer, and drainage improvements. Plus, we're going to be redoing the roads as we go through the utility project. The different colors just show where utilities are happening with the color coding up there and to the left. Go ahead to the next slide, Jen. As Ms. Perry already mentioned, the warrant was approved for $5.1 million yesterday, and our anticipated schedule is as follows. I'd like to start a discussion with you folks today about a potential sewer service replacement program. Second neighborhood meeting, we've already had the first one, but we'll have the second one sometime in April. Go out to bid for the project April and May, and begin construction in June. And I fixed mine, but it's still here in August of 2022. We think is when the project's going to be done. We think it's going to be a double season. Next slide. So in the area that I showed there, where we're replacing utilities, there's 107 homes that bordered that project. And where we're replacing the sewer, there's actually 59 homes that border where the sewer is going to be replaced. And what we have proposed currently in our project is we will replace those sewers in that area, and then we will also replace the sewer service from the main to the property line. And that's where we're stopped. The other areas where sewer is not being replaced in the street, we will be not be doing any service work. Now, those 59 houses that border the sewer portions of the project, there is 40 of them that are in poor condition. They're mostly clay surfaces. There is some cast iron that is tuberculated with very small openings and stuff. And we learned this by TV inspections inside the services where we could get to them. And we're also assuming that there's a number of sump pumps in this area. And at our first neighborhood meeting, it was a while ago, one of the questions came up from one of the attendees, and this was just prior to the COVID time. So it was actually a meeting at the town hall. And it was asked that will the town entertain a private sewer service replacement program? And at the time, I did not know, the town did not know the conditions of the sewer services, nor the amount of sump pumps or maybe I&I situation. So now that we've gone and investigated some of these, I'd like to talk a little bit about if you would consider a program similar to what we had done in J.D. Hill. And the J.D. Hill project now is getting on in time, but I don't really remember how long ago it was, 8-10 years or so.
Yeah.
But that particular area of town was focused in on because of the inflow and infiltration problem, extraneous groundwater and stormwater that was getting into the sewer system and inundating the sewers. And at that time, we had this Orangeburg pipe that was all over the neighborhood. The pipes were being crushed. There was a lot of inflow coming in from the services. Plus, there was many sump pumps in that area. And with the help of this board, there was a program devised that allowed a town contractor to go onto the private property and to replace sewer services at the homeowner's discretion. And when they did that, they had to make sure that there was no sump pumps still into the sewer and that sort of thing. And the agreement at that time was that the homeowner would pay the first $1,000 of the cost of the replacement, and they could pay back that to the town, that $1,000. Town would upfront the money, but it could be paid back at $100 a year with 0% interest. So that was the project in JD Hill. And I wanted to have the conversation since a fair number, or a large number of the services that we looked at, 68% of those where the sewer is being replaced, is in poor condition. What is a little different about this project as compared to the JD Hill project is that this area of town is more of a sandy area. And while the JD Hill had I&I situations for most of the year, we would say that the I&I situation in this part of town is not as severe because of the types of soils and stuff. But there is some getting into our system.
Plus, it's relatively high ground too, Paul.
Yeah,
because I think this project has been on your list for a number of years, but we never really saw a lot of problems, even though the pipes are undersized, because it's high ground and the soils are better. You're right.
Yeah. So with that, just get your feelings on this, because when we go, I'm sure when we go back to the second neighborhood meeting, they're going to ask about a private sewer service replacement program. And I just wanted to hear what maybe your thoughts were, whether a similar type of program will get traction or not. And as far as financing this, in some of our assumptions of the opinion of costs, we did include some private service replacements just in case there was a program approved.
Paul, I have a couple questions. What was the average cost of the service replacement up at JD Hill? Like how much did the town ultimately pay versus the homeowner for service?
So I don't recall like the average. I do know that this is going to be a little bit different because I was even surprised at how little the linear foot replacement would be. In the JD Hill project, we had a straight $50 per foot. And not only did we do a sewer service, but if there was a drain line right there, we would also extend a drain line service, like a relief drain, so that if they had a sump pump, they could tie into that. So there was usually two lines being put onto the private property. In the Salem Street area, the houses are much closer to the road, so there's less footage. And I would not propose to add a drainage or a relief drain service in this project unless the people have a sump pump and there is no other place to do something with that. So it wouldn't be an automatic addition of a relief drain service for this. So there's two different, and for right now, I think we've got like $75 a foot or so assumed for the cost of the replacements.
But to Ben's point, have we done any calculations of what that linear footage is? Outside of them being close to the road?
We do have some. I don't have that right in front of me now, but I anticipate like the full cost of the program being about $150,000.
of which we would get 40,000 back
Correct.
over 10 years.
I can say I live in JD Hill, and I was part of this project, and we're still paying our $100 a year. It was stressful for the neighborhood to make that decision and try to understand what was going on. But I appreciate the town having the meetings that they did with us as a neighborhood so that we could understand it. And it was helpful.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
I do have some numbers I was able to find in some of the report. The right-of-way to the house, just for the sewer service lengths on the private side, is 868 linear feet.
So it's $75 a foot. That's a far cry from $150,000. What am I missing here?
We're missing the
you said you would assume $75 a foot.
Yeah, and there was some additional drainage service that was included into it. And what I did is I've kind of concluded that there will probably be some other carryover where we find some pump specific that might be outside of the range of where the sewer service program was. So that's why I had bumped that up some.
So bumped it up like 2.5 times.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pedal right now to come up with how I came up with 160. But that was in the original estimate or the latest estimate from the consultant for the private service work. That's where I grabbed that.
I mean, initial reaction, 65K and we're getting 40 back. And to be consistent with JD Hill, I mean, it doesn't seem like a too controversial decision to suggest going that way.
I would agree, but if it's 150, then it's a little bit different. And so I guess from my perspective, I'd like to get some better numbers.
Yeah, and we've got you've got a 50% increase in cost per foot. Would it not make sense to do a 50% increase on what the homeowner pays for their portion instead of 1,000 being 1,500? That would get more of it back.
I mean, I would agree, because over 10 years, you divide it out on a monthly basis. It's like $12 a month. And they're basically relieving the potential of having, a flooded basement or whatever. It's almost free money. So you're pretty confident of the 868 feet, but it now looks like you're using $175 a linear foot, which seems a little bit high. I think we're in general inclined to do something similar at JD Hill, but as far as the rate and how we do it, I think we need to have some better comfort on the numbers, Paul.
Well, I agree. If I was sitting in your shoes right now and you saw me present the numbers and you did the calculations, I'd come up with the same answer. What I've gotten right now is a flavor that, yes, this may be something that would be entertained. And from here, I can start drilling down onto the specifics and model it very similar to the JD Hill project and go from there.
Paul, sorry, another question. Out of curiosity, did trenchless lining of the laterals get investigated at all? I know that can be much more cost effective if there isn't tuberculation. Did that enter the equation?
Well, obviously in the cast iron where the tuberculation is, that's not part of it. We were more concerned about the joint separations in the clay pipes, clay surfaces.
Okay.
When do you anticipate getting back with the residents?
As I think the previous slide in April. Jen Mates, can you go back one slide? Yeah, April.
Yeah, I think in concept, and we can take a consensus from the committee. I think in general, in concept, we'd be for this, but before we start throwing out any number, I mean, again, at JD Hill, we were looking at $50 a linear foot, and now we're looking at potentially over 3 times that, 3.5 times that. So if that's the case, I think Carl's right. I know from my perspective, we'd be looking for a little bit more buy-in on a percentage basis from the homeowners than $1,000 over 10 years, just because the costs have gone up astronomically. And we're sort of doing them a favor. Otherwise they would have to either hire their own contractor and pay it all up front, or whistle past the graveyard, as it were, and hope like heck that they don't get a catastrophic sewer blockage. So either way, we're helping them out. But I don't think, the town's got a lot of expenses on our plate, water and sewer wise, some of which was approved yesterday. And again, if we're doing something as a favor, I think we'd want to realign the costs so that they're more equitable between the town and the homeowner. I'm not saying we don't do it, but I think we need to realign the JD Hill deal, as it were.
Bob?
Yes.
I just wanted to reiterate a little bit of what Paul had said early in his presentation, in that I realize JD Hill and Salem Street are different areas and may have different percentages as far as removal of I&I, but the JD Hill project was a success in our eyes as far as removing the private I&I. I think we were anticipating in that particular project, it could be even up to 70% of the I&I. And that's a huge benefit to the town. That's clean water that we don't have to treat from here on into almost perpetuity when we put in a PVC service. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that benefit to the town too.
Yeah, my recollection is we were taking out, 75,000 gallons a day, I think, because of that project from I&I. That's, I think, the number from back in the day.
Yeah, I don't remember the actual, the real numbers. And that will vary, obviously, with where the groundwater table is and what's going on with inflow. But it can be significant, and we can say on the treatment side of the house and the pump station side of the house, we could see significant reductions in flows due to those improvements.
What would be your preferred approach in April, Paul and Jen Mates? Would you be looking to negotiate actual numbers at that point, or just give them conceptuals?
It would be a general outline of what may be possible until we firm up the agreement or the cost sharing portion of it. You can lay out that, especially now that we know which services are in the worst conditions, we could individually notify those homeowners about the condition of their sewers. And also it'd be time too with those same discussions to find out if there's any other sump pumps that we don't know about already that may be tied into it. So I think it's a discussion, and I think it can then be further considered of what this agreement's going to be for the cost share, and then could also start the homeowner considering whether they want to participate in a program like this or not.
Okay,
I think another big.
Go ahead, Carl.
I think another big question that the homeowners are going to have is, how long is my lawn going to be torn up with this? How long is this going to take? And I mean, those are the kinds of questions that I would have if I were them. So just something to an answer I think you should at least have some guess at before you approach.
Yeah, I can say when it happened in my neighborhood was very stressed about the whole idea, and the town talked about it being more from the I&I perspective and being important for the town than doing the neighborhood a favor. And that all of the front yards were torn up, but the town did a good job of meeting with the community several times. And this deal that we got was not the first thing that they brought forward about how to fund this. And it was the community, my small neighborhood community, was much more supportive of it because it was something we could pay for over 10 years because they're not, we don't have a lot of money over here in JD Hill. But they did replant our grass and took care of it afterwards. And so there wasn't a long-term problem at all.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I think the deal and some sort of cost sharing is an excellent idea, and using JD Hill as a model is, why wouldn't we? That was a successful program by all accounts and by all perspectives. I think we on the town end, we need to get a harder a better feel for the numbers we're talking about. It seems like going from $50 to $175 a foot, that's something, we're missing something. So I think that number needs to be hardened up. And then we have to get a better idea of what we're looking at. As Ben said, if the expense is $65,000 and we get 40 back, then that works. We're willing to let the homeowner, have some freebie. But if we're fronting $150,000, that's a lot of money. And I think we need to consider it in view of all the other things that we want to have done, the 3 other agenda items that you have tonight, as well as the other things in CIP that are going to be discussed over the next few years. So, that would be my recommendation, is get a better handle on the construction costs before we start making the, lay out the program to the people beyond concept. I think the concept is sound. Yes, there will be some cost sharing. Yes, we will extend it over a long period of time, probably 10 years, but it won't be the dollar for dollar the same as JD Hill. I think, that point should be put across, because obviously those numbers are out there. So that would be my recommendation. If anyone has anything to the contrary, feel free to weigh in, but that would be my feeling, having gone through the JD Hill thing from the town's perspective myself. Is that reasonable, Paul?
Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. And yes, and I'll have some supporting numbers for a more thorough discussion.
Excellent. Hey, Jen Mates, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Could you do me a favor, and I may ask you to do all of these, but the slides here that you're putting up, yep, at some point, could you email those to me, please, so I could have the data for future discussions?
Yep.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jen. Go one more. So now we're going to switch gears and talk about another project. The project that I'm going to talk about is the siphon upgrade, what was originally called the siphon upgrade. And this is an aerial photo with some sewer lines put onto the plan. And what you're looking at on the screen is the Squamscott River, Clemson Pond, and where you see lines in green, sewer lines, the lines in blue are the CSO, combined sewer overflow pipes. And where you have the yellow pump station, that's the main pump station with an orange force main that goes up to the wastewater treatment facility at the Public Works facility. So there is a siphon that goes from the J.D. Hill side of the Squamscott River, right next to Clemson Pond, and then goes onto the between the two CSO pipes. The two CSO pipes are 36-inch diameter pipes. The siphon pipes for the sanitary sewer are 8-inch. They're sandwiched in between them. They're buried underneath the river, and they come up to the Swayze Parkway side of the river and then flow to the pump station. There are some capacity issues in the siphons, and it was originally planned to upgrade the project, the siphons to add more capacity. Next slide, please.
Siphons, all of them, or siphons the CSO?
The sanitary siphons, not the CSO.
There's only one sanitary pipe, right?
There's two.
Oh, there's two. Okay.
There's two. Yeah.
Okay.
So
there's 4 pipes total.
There's 4 pipes going across the river currently. 2 are the 36-inch CSO pipes that go to Clemson Pond.
Okay.
And 2 sanitary that go to 8-inch pipes that go to the pump station.
Okay, I thought there was only one sanitary, but okay, good enough. Thanks.
So the plan was, at least one of the concept plans, one of the more attractive ones, is to horizontally, directionally drill another pipe underneath the Squamscott River over to the pump station. And at the time, that was the construction costs were going to be about $950,000. But as we were looking at the different options here, we had it in the contract for a consultant to also have somebody clean the existing company clean the existing siphons, and then try to get some videos of the condition of those pipes. Go on to the next slide. What you're looking at here is a close-up of that river crossing. You have the Clemson Pond on the right, and you've got over on the left is the Swayze Parkway and the main pump station shown there. So 2 different colors. One is the north pipe, as the blue, and the green is on the southern pipe. So there was actually 2 different attempts to video the siphons. And the first attempt in cleaning it first, they could only get maybe about 25% of the pipe videoed because of voids in the pipe, holes in the pipe, and also that when they tried to pump out the water, because of the holes, it would keep filling in. So they weren't able to do that on the first try. They worked out another mechanism, came back again after we did a little contract amendment, And they were able to get about 75% of the pipe inspected. And you can see there's some areas that don't have the blue or the green shown. Those are areas that we still haven't been able to see what the condition of the pipes are. So the town looked to see what it would be to slip line the pipe. And when I say slip line, can you go to the next slide? Next one after that. Slip line, the correct phrase is cured in place pipe liner. So that I'm confusing the two, but the town tried to see if that was an option for those sewers. Can you go back now, Jen? And the contractor that was cleaning the pipe was also a slip lining company, and they said their technology could not do that. So then the town searched for another company, and it said that there's a possibility of potentially slip lining this pipe. However, they feel a lot more comfortable if while they're doing the pipe and say whatever agitation they do to the pipe, there might be a pipe collapse or something, that it would probably be better if there was a way to have a relief from that, the sewer flows, so that if something collapsed, that you had a way to go around it. So the recommendation is please have a way that if something breaks, that you'll be able to still maintain flows from one side of the river to the other. So as soon as we started finding the condition of these pipes in very poor condition, we had notified New Hampshire DES folks. Next slide. And the DES folks had a couple of things to say. Yeah, they were concerned about the condition of the pipes for sure. And we were concerned too that slip lining the pipes without some place to put extra flows, we weren't going to have enough money for that scenario. It also, because it was originally a upgrade or a way to add more capacity to our system, all of a sudden when we found the holes, we had to maintain our existing system first and then be able to upgrade on it. So the DES recognized the town's effort for sewer upgrades to the wastewater treatment facility, I&I removal, and also noted that there has not been flows going over, the CSO flows going over to Clemson and Clune as of the completion of the main pump station. And they did offer up some whatever scenario that the town can come up with on how to fix now the existing sewers and to create expansion, that they could relax some design criteria temporarily if it suits the project out in the long-term goals. Like there might be some velocity requirements. So like if the town was going to put one barrel across the river for that extra capacity, like I talked about the original plan, and we might oversize it and have to use that. Well, it might not have the right velocities at the time, but it will at the end of the project. Then they would do whatever is reasonable for the long-term finance of the project. But they did say they would prefer not to wait for the project to be fully funded to do everything, that you have some funds already from an SRF loan. We'd like to see you use that to start fixing some of your situations. Next slide. So with that, we've gone back with the consultants and we had a bunch of different options, and these are some of the ones that came to the top, except for the very first one that I'll talk about here in a moment. But doing that the cured in place pipeliner, which I've been saying slip liner all along, it is too much of a risk exposure that if something happened there would not be able to get the flows from one side of the river to the other. Another option would be to go ahead and put one of those pipes by directionally drilling, like we saw at like the second slide of the project, and then ask for more money in the next CIP process, watch that go through, and then we can decide whether we want to try to save the existing siphons that have the holes in them, or if we wanted to go ahead and try to put 2 more directionally drilled pipes underneath the river and have brand new pipes. And this is kind of the cost analysis for that. And there's a solid line right down the center here of phase 1, we're actually doing something, and below that line is waiting for full funding, which the DS folks may not be as savvy to. So the real important column to look into is that additional 2022 CIP column. It's the column on the right that's green. And if we would decide to do the pipeliner scenario on the phase 2, then we would need to be asking for $672,000 in next year's CIP to make that option viable. Now, if we didn't want to try to use those 2 existing siphons, and we wanted to drill 2 additional pipes underneath the river to go with the one that we already started with, then we would be asking for a almost $1.5 million in next year's CIP. Now, there are some other options underneath that. Wait for the full funding and do the directional drill plus the pipelining. That was $622. That's only a $50,000 savings. I'm not sure that the DES would entertain that option. Do all 3, wait for we have enough money for all 3 directionally drilled pipes. That would be an additional $942,000 in the 2022 CIP, which is a substantial savings over doing 1 now and 2 later, because you're doing basically 2 different projects. And then even with the directionally drilled option, there's some risk with that too. But maybe you'll encounter something in that line going under the river that you didn't anticipate that may stop that from happening. And so our consultants looked at the option of open cutting. And if you did that and you had to wait, and you certainly had to wait for you to have enough money, that was $1.9 million. And so that was $950,000 more than directionally drill option. So with all of these different options here, I wanted to point out one other thing that is weighing at least pretty heavily on my mind, is what happens, say right now, if there was a pipe collapse or something right now because of the condition of the pipe, or what happens as we are almost done with this project, or at least the first phase, and there's a clog. What are we going to do? If we are able to finish at least the 1 directionally drilled pipe, we'll have an avenue across the river. But if that's not in place, there's 2 other options that our consultants looked at, and these are like contingency plans for a bypass type of pumping scenario. Go on to the next slide, please. So if we had to do an emergency bypass because there's no other way to get across the river, we'll be looking at installation costs here in the second column. And there's two avenues. One is to go through one of the existing CSO barrels. That's the one that we would need the waiver for. You were required to have two as a redundancy. The DES may look favorably on that for this particular project to get us through that. However, because of cofferdams and stuff that needs to be installed just to be able to access the pipe. Now that pipe material is the same material as the siphons. And if the siphons are in poor condition, we don't even know what the siphon conditions are. So we have built into this cost also some exploratory work to see the condition of the siphons, because we wouldn't want to be trying to push a pipe through there and then go outside of the pipe because of voids or whatever. The other option would be to lay pipe across the ground, but it would be a very long, it would be a long pathway to go up to String Bridge, along that side of the, on the JD Hill side of the river, across String Bridge, down behind Water Street, and over to Swayze Parkway to the main station there. That has less of an installation cost. But once you have this, the installation is done, you're also going to need to have a pump right there at the siphon and pumping continuously, almost like a little package pump station, and maintenance of that. And the maintenance for those run from about $25,000 to $29,000 a month. So in the very next column, there was like, okay, let's just assume, and this was only so that you can grasp the magnitude of these numbers, that you'd have to have this system in operation, say for, and it's totally arbitrary what this example is for 12 months. You can see how much the maintenance costs are, for the monthly maintenance costs add up. So you would be looking at $750,000 to $1 million if it was a 12-month scenario where you had to do some bypassing. So this weighs pretty heavily, at least on the department here, of a contingency plan if something fails and we don't have availability to get sewer from one side to the other. So with that, if you could, Jen, go back to the option matrix. And
Paul, really quickly before you leave that slide, what is actually involved in the maintenance part of it? What does that include? Presumably, it's the electricity and somebody managing the pumps is
yes, it's the fuel, it's the maintenance of it, and
the charges.
Yeah, it's just a rental fee.
Yeah.
That seems pretty high for, I mean, once you get it set up, I can see the setup cost being somewhat high, but then it just runs.
Yeah, bypass pumping is not cheap though.
No.
This was this was in line with when we had the break on High Street. These were typical rental charges when we had those pumps. They were maybe around $16,000 to $20,000 a month.
Okay. Thanks.
So, Jen, can you go? So now I came back to this slide to know that the longer we wait, and I'm not saying that there will be a situation with the existing siphons not working, but if one would happen, waiting may not be our in our best interest and stuff. So with that, I'll turn it over to you folks if you have any advice or any comments so that we can consider those as we move forward with the project.
Refresh my memory on what, I have way too many budget items floating around in my head. What did we approve a couple years ago to do this project?
It was $1.6 million, of which 1.4 million was earmarked for the siphon itself. The other 200,000 was for the design of the upgrade to the Webster pump station.
Okay, so what exactly are we short from that call it 1.4?
So with $1.4 million, we can do everything in that dollar column in blue. We can do any one of those options. And you can see the closest that we get is the 1.2 million with the installation of the directionally drilled pipe underneath the river. Any extra left over from the 1.4 million gets to be applied to the phase 2 option. And what else that we need from the 1.4 million, in addition to whatever's left in that, is the column that has the dollar figures in green. So the math is kind of already done.
We're not seeing the color differential.
Oh, you're not?
No. So the additional 22 CIP are those numbers over and above 1.4, or are they over and above the 1.2? So what's the total project cost?
4. Bob, I was speaking when you did. I didn't hear what you said, Bob.
So again, I'm just trying to organize the numbers here. So for instance, the second line, the HDT, the 1.2 million, additional of 672. So for a total project cost of 1.87. So does that mean that's a total project cost? So we already have 1.4. So we would need around 400,000 or no?
No, I didn't give you the total cost of just the phase 2 option.
Okay, that's right. So we're missing a column.
I did the math already, so that we didn't have to have that discussion, but I should have put it in there.
So the additional, so
this,
again,
this includes this column. Jen Mace, can you point out the additional? Yeah, that column there is what we would need above and beyond the 1.4 million we already have.
Okay. All right, so there should be another column that the total project cost of that second line is around 2 million. Total project cost of the third line is 2.8 million, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, technologically, and maybe I'll have you weigh in on this, Ben, if you're familiar with either of those I'm several decades removed from doing this kind of thing. I mean, technologically, which is a better way to go?
And now clearly the safest way is to do a full directional drill, whatever lines you need, but I am having trouble following the costs, and honestly, even stepping back from that, I'm a bit uneducated on the overall need. Paul, if you don't mind, so there's 236s going over to the pond, carrying the excess flow from the main part of town. You said there's 2 8s coming the other way with sanitary flow from JD Hill to the pump station. There for a total of 4 pipes.
Correct.
Okay.
2 36s and 2 8s.
So which ones did they inspect, the 36s or the 8s?
The 8-inch pipes were inspected, and that's the sanitary pipes that go from the JD Hill side of the road, of the river, go through the sanitary siphons to the main pump station. From there, that goes up to the wastewater treatment facility.
And did they get all the way through those 8-inch?
Can you say that again?
Did they get all the way across those pipes?
No. We were still not able to inspect the 25% of the line.
So these colors relate to the 8-inch or the 36?
These relate to the 8-inch pipes, and the colors represent what was able to be inspected. So if you don't see like for example, the bottom color, and you guys are not seeing colors very good. So if
we can see colors on this one.
On this one, okay.
Yes.
So there's a gap between the green lines. That is where we could not get a camera to see what's going on.
In the 8-inch, did you attempt the 36s?
No, we didn't inspect the 36s at all. We did not do anything for looking into that. This was entirely an upgrade of the sanitary sewer siphon, and not an upgrade of the CSO pipes. And the CSO pipes are only utilized when the capacities of the pump station, like during a heavy rainstorm and additional flows are being put into it, can't handle it. Then those 36-inch pipes then carry the flow from the Swayze Parkway side over to Clemson Lagoon and let the flows go into there.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the basic questions. So the upgrades we're talking about, are the new lines would be sanitary lines, not CSO lines?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So if you could go back to that cost table, I'm still having trouble following that a little bit. So for the top options here would be to line both of those 8-inch lines, which has risk to it, right? Or is that just one of the lines?
That's both of them. And that's the one that the department is thinking that we should steer clear of because of too much risk.
And then the second line is to drill one line and line another. I'm having
yes. The second line is to go ahead with the first phase, drill directionally drill across the river one pipe. And the cost for that, including design costs that we're already into, is $1.2 million. So after that phase, there is $200,000. I'm just going to round the number out here.
Sure.
Addition for me, easier. There's still $200,000 left. So then you come in with phase two once you get more money, and the money that we're going to be asking for is $672,000 in the CIP. But you're going to say, where did that number come from? Well, if I add my $200,000 that I have left over from my 1.4, it's $872,000 is the cost to do phase two work. But I only need of that 872 because I have 200 left over, 672,000.
Carl, did you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. My internet here, and I missed part of the presentation. I had to switch over to a phone. So I have some questions about the SIP line. Is the lifetime on the SIP line comparable to that of a horizontal drilled line, or is it considerably less?
I don't know the exact answer to that, but I do have some experience with the pipeliners, and those pipeliners is almost like inserting a new pipe into it. It's not inserting, it's a liner that then is hardened inside, but it has the life expectancy of a newer pipe. How does that compare to the directional drill pipe? I'd say they're probably comparable.
So it would seem like a no-brainer to do line number 2 instead of line number 3 in terms of cost, if that's the case. I mean, obviously, I guess these are totally redundant. So the reason there's too much risk exposure trying to do the SIP line on the 2 existing ones is, you've got too much. You need to get something going in that works, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Why is there too much risk exposure on line 1, but not too much risk exposure on line 2, where you're doing a SIP line for phase 2?
When you say line, that's the horizontal going across. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yes.
So why there's not too much risk on the scenario, and I should have numbered those. The second scenario is because now you have a pipe across the river. You have a directionally drilled pipe that's functional on phase 1. Now you come in on phase 2 and you try to do the pipeliner, and something happens there. Well, you have the ability then to use the directionally drilled pipe that you've already installed in phase 1 as the bypass to get across the river, as you try to figure out how to fix the existing siphons.
Okay, I understand now. Then another question that's kind of got me concerned. Worst case scenario, what if one of these were to collapse tonight? What would we do? Or both? I mean, I don't know what's our backup contingency plan right now? Does that mean, is that it?
Bypass pump.
We'd have to choose one of those.
Okay. So we're in a situation where this could happen at any time while we're waiting to get the other installed. And we don't have any funds set aside for that. So it's going to have to be an emergency action by somebody to release the funds to do this. Is that correct? Do we have an emergency fund for that?
Yeah, well, we have reserves.
Okay.
They're sort of earmarked for other things, but emergency is an emergency. So,
right. Okay.
Whatever. So this bypass, in some cases, that actually has to be added to the previous cost, doesn't it? Don't we have to do some bypassing regardless? No?
No.
Okay.
So, what's the total project? Like, if you wait for full funding for directional drill, what's the total project? Is it 1.4 plus 942?
Which line are there? The 3 directionally drilled pipes waiting until we have the full funding. Oh, that line right there?
Yeah, what's the total overall project?
Yeah, you add 1.4 million to that 942,000.
Okay. And then doing the directional drill in phases, total project is what, 2.6 or no?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, it'd be easier, Paul, to sort of, and I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but it'd be easier to follow this if the table was somewhat oriented a little bit differently. One with a column or a row numbering, and then 2 with some sort of totaling in there, so we don't have to constantly do that delta math in our head every time we talk about a line. I mean, what exactly are you looking? What exactly are you requesting, and what's your time frame?
This was a discussion. I would like to find out within the next month of how the town wants to pursue which option here. So this discussion was to understand the flavor, or to, again, flush out any issues or any other concerns. Yes, there is pluses and minuses to risks at every step of the way on this one, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion. And I certainly could have done the matrices differently to explain all the different numbers, but I just want to say that this was my attempt at moving forward what we would have to ask in the next CIP.
Oh, I agree. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's good. It's a good starting place. But if we're looking to make some decisions on the financial part, we probably need to flesh this out. As far as looking at this as some sort of an emergency thing versus waiting until basically a year from now to get a CIP vote, we would have to know we'd have to know, one, what your recommended plan is. So what are you recommending, technologically on this? And then we would have to see what that exact number, the matrix needs to be a little bit simpler to follow as to what exactly we're looking for on the right-hand side as far as a bottom line, so that we can go into the reserves and see what we would have available to do that, and then balance that with the risk of waiting for a year. So, I mean, the short answer is we can do it, but I think some combination of myself, the town manager, and some combination of folks from the department we would need to balance the cost versus the risks versus the reserve fund, and then make a decision from there. But right now, with this table in front of me, I can't make that recommendation because nothing is popping out at me as a way to go. I don't know if anyone else on the committee is seeing this more clearly than I am, but I mean, I see the broad numbers, but there's nothing that says this is the direction we should be going in. There's no recommended plan or preferred plan here.
I just want to comment that waiting is a huge risk.
Seriously.
Being one who is on the J.D. Hill side of that river, and I think that, that moving quickly has huge advantages over waiting for another vote in 2 years and hope we get the vote then. We've got the 1.4 million approved now, and we're tasked with getting something that works now. I think we should try to get something that works now. That's just
I fully agree. Yeah. I fully agree, but we need to understand that the sewer reserve fund is not bottomless. First of all. Second of all, we've worked very hard over the past 5 years to build that up so that we don't have to raise rates, multiple times in a year.
That is my point. That is my point. That the reserve fund is not bottomless, and I was under the impression this 1.4 million was not out of the reserve fund. It was out of
it's not.
Okay,
that's already been
already approved CIP. So, yes. But we run the risk the longer we wait of having to use the emergency reserve fund to do this bypass on Stream Bridge.
Right, but what they're saying, I think, again, there's nothing that falls out of here as a preferred plan. There's also additional parts to the project that show here as being requested in 2022. I think there's a risk to waiting to 2022 on that, but maybe not. Again, it doesn't fall out from this table.
Well, I think what it boils down to is, if you went directional drill on both, your project cost just doubled, right? Essentially, it's 2.6 million from 1.4.
Right.
So I think Bob's right. We need to vet out, what are the true costs here, and then maybe have a deeper discussion. I personally, being on the technical side, I'd be curious, for example, which companies you guys worked with on the CIP lining options, because there are a number of companies out there that can do some pretty crazy things. So I know there's a lot of risks there, and I'm not suggesting that's the right way to go, but we want to flesh some of that out because we are talking about a lot of money.
How long would it take you, Paul and Jen, to revise this table? One, to number the different options and maybe have something that describes them with a sentence or two, and then lay out the columns such that we see, all right, this is what we have approved. This is what the phase 1 project cost is. This is what phase 2 is, then that total, and then what the delta is, and then so that we can see across and then orient those so that there is some sort of preferred option laid out from your guys' perspective. I mean, I got to believe that who's doing this work? Underwood?
No, it's Wright Pierce.
Wright Pierce. I mean, they must have some advice as to the best way to go.
It hasn't been lean on any one of these options because of the risk. I would say that if pushed, it would be to directionally drill one across the river right now. And then they did not weigh in other than point out the risks of either pipeline or go ahead and drill 2 more on the second phase of this. So
because if we take that second option, the horizontal drill then plus the cured in place, but there's a breach and we have to bypass, then we've totally thrown away, our savings goes away because we've added in $1 million on bypass pumping or something.
Well, once the phase 1 is done with a directionally drill, that is your new force main that goes across there.
Okay.
And then it's a matter of then pumping into that. So it's the maintenance fee then for that.
So it looks like option 2, the second line down, is the preferred option if technologically neither of those processes jumps out at you as being better than the other.
That is correct, except that we don't know what the inside of 25% of that pipe looks like.
So that's the risk factor.
Correct.
And if that doesn't go the way we would want it to, then we start incurring bypass pumping costs.
Well, then it would be, we'd have to go and then look at the third one down right above the solid black line. That would be the option then.
So we'd have to switch, which would be more cost. Carl?
Yes.
You're muted.
I had a question about the lines, I guess 5 and 6 here, where you have the 3 HDD and then 3 open cut. What is that? What's the 3 represent there?
That is 3 pipes, 3 individual pipes, 3 barrels that would be installed.
Okay. So now I am confused. I thought that we were 2 pipes total on line on these other, or certainly the second line, 2 8-inch lines. On, you got the one horizontal drilled, and then you're going to line the other one, or you've got one horizontal drill, then you're adding 2 more for 1.4 million. I'm confused. Why are there so many?
The conventional way the current way to do siphons is typically to have 3 barrels. Back in the day when it was originally installed, the existing siphons, there was only 2. So this would then have different size pipes for different flow scenarios that come from the J.D. Hill area. And our consultants say that if we were going to be doing this all brand new, that we would need 3 pipes, 3 barrels. And I don't know if that exactly answered your question there, Carl.
Not really. I don't understand why that is. I'm sorry, did you say something, Bob?
Well, what I'm trying to get to the numbers. So if we do option 5, for lack of a better, so now we're looking at what, $2.3 million total project cost? Is it 1.4 plus 942? Is that correct?
For the total project cost, it would be 1.4 plus the 942. You're correct.
But we still only, with the one here, I guess line 2, the one I was talking about earlier, you still only have 2 pipes there, right? Yes. Are we doing 1 pipe and then lining both of the other 2?
You're lining both of the others, so you'll have 3 pipes.
Okay. Now it makes sense. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
But line 2 carries with it the same risk as line 1, then.
It does.
No, because you already have the horizontal drill there to be your backup in case there's a problem.
When I say risk of not being able to line it, that's my concern.
Oh well, yeah,
that's correct.
That's correct.
In which case, then you're back to having to put in another 2 pipes, which is going to increase the cost to pick a number. That's not even one of these options. That if option 2 fails, what's 2A? We don't know what the costs of that are.
Yeah, because maybe one of them will work and the other one won't. So then you'll just need 1 more horizontally drilled.
Have you done any geotech borings under the river? Do we know anything about what's down there?
Yeah, so we were able to obtain the original geotechnical work from the original installation, so we knew what that was. There were several in the river. We did not do additional borings in the river itself, but we did do on land where we thought jacking and receiving pits would be. We did do geotechnical work there.
Well, this would be something that, we could, as a committee, with a revised table, we could agree with you on what the preferred plan is. And then the next step would be to talk to the town manager and the finance department to see what would be available on a, let's say, non-encumbered emergency basis. And then that would be presented to the select board. That's a several month process. So, I don't know what your time frame is on this. As Carl has articulated several times, there's a risk to sitting around. So I think the first step would be to revise this table and get it back to us with, so that it's very clear as to what the options are and what the risk factors are, even in a text form, and then and with a preferred plan in there, and then we'll go from there. That'd be, I guess the first start. We don't have to have another meeting necessarily. We can weigh in on it or whatever. We can have a meeting next month if we have to. This seems to be pretty important, but I don't think we're there yet in the allocation of costs.
Very good. And I can have that revised table with additional literature to go with it by the end of the week.
Yeah, not to be a nudge. Maybe just if you could revise the table and send it to me, and I'll distribute it to the committee with if I have any comments, and then we'll assimilate all of our comments, and then back to you. And hopefully there won't be any because you'll knock it out of the park with the next iteration. But, rather than have everybody, piling on, send it to me and I'll distribute it to the committee. And we'll come back to you with some sort of united front.
I like that scenario, and I can have that to you by the end of the week. Thank you.
Carl, did you have something else?
Just a quick question. It sounded like it was not technologically possible to get an assessment as to whether the SIP line, those sections we can't look at, was feasible. And is that the part that we can look at, I presume, since it's on the list of options, is feasible to do in those places. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had a company come in, and from the portions that he was able to see, he was confident that he could do the slip lining with his technology. It was just a question mark, but he still felt fairly confident that he could do it if the rest of the pipe was in a similar condition.
Yeah, not to be too annoying, but is there like a summary of the inspections that we could look at?
There are videos of the whole inspection.
There's no summary report of any sort?
Not that I grabbed, but I'm sure our consultants probably have that.
Just curious.
So we didn't do the camera work. That was the subcontract? Because I know
That's correct.
Oh, that's right, because Matt doesn't have his new camera yet.
And he doesn't want to lose it. Didn't want to lose it under the river, probably.
I was going to say, I don't have the ability to do what a private company can do. I can't afford to lose that sucker.
You underestimate yourself, Matt.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we're talking a lot of money here. I think that we need to somehow get something from Wright Pierce. Ben brings up a good point. If with what they found in their TVing, they're looking at us to potentially spend twice as much money as we allocated, because we allocated money based on assumptions. So if we're being asked to do more than that, especially in an emergency basis, there should be some sort of backup for that. Not just them telling you, holy cow, these videos are horrendous. You need to do this, Paul. I mean, there should be something that supports all of this.
Well, of course there's something. And even at the select board presentation, we had little bits and pieces of photos where we could see the conditions of the pipe and stuff. But I have no doubt that our consultants have that, and certainly the conclusion is the pipe is not in good condition.
Fair enough. And just if I can, again, you can't change the past, but you can use the past to plan for the future. So our estimate of the $1.6 million was based on several assumptions, not the least of which is that those pipes were in better shape than they ended up being. Is that somewhat fair?
Yeah.
So they're just in worse condition than we thought.
It was a surprise that what we found in the condition of the pipes.
Got it. Okay. That's fine. All right. Yeah, I'll look forward to getting that table, and then we can weigh in.
Okay. Jen Mates, advance it to a couple more slides. Again. Now, part of the project was to then also look at the upgrade of the Webster pump station too. And the current flows is 441,000 gallons a day. We did an exercise with the town planner, with the economic developer, with economic development to try to anticipate where growth is going to be. The hospital also would like to get rid of one of their pump stations and go towards this area. With those combined, we estimated that average daily flows in 2050 will be around 626,000 gallons a day. The estimate for rehabbing the Webster pump station with a new wet well for these new flows, and then adding the force main replacement, we'll have to put a different force main in there. The total project cost is going to be $4.3 million, which is an increase, a substantial increase from what we thought it was going to be when we anticipated construction costs. Now, we don't have construction costs at all for the Webster pump station. All we had is the $200,000 for the design of it. But I wanted to bring this to your attention sooner than later, that you will see this updated dollar cost in the 6-year CIP. And that was just more for basically introducing the cost of the project.
So the original estimate, and it was originally in the CIP for this year, but it got delayed, was $2.5 million. So this is the delta from 2.5?
No, this replaces 2.5.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So this replaces 2.5. Okay.
Correct.
So the difference primarily is, well, it's the force main replacement. I think that actually was in wasn't that in the CIP?
Yes, that was part of it.
So it's the delta between.
Excuse me, Bob?
Well, yeah, I'll want to we'll want to have a discussion about this, because we made a mistake 15 years ago of estimating water supply requirements in town, and we designed a water treatment plant accordingly. And in the end, we found that our estimates were wildly optimistic. You know, there were build outs in town that were realistically never going to happen, like in Northwest Exeter. You know, we're not going to run a sewer north of 101. It's just not going to happen unless somebody else pays for it. So I'd want to drill down personally into these numbers a little bit and see where the 40% increase comes from, or whatever it is, just to make sure that our assumptions are valid. Because we've had experience where assumptions were made and they were not valid, and it ended up costing the town because of it. So I think, planning is good, economic development assessments are good, but we also need to, look at that in a broader scale than just, this is what the zoned land in town could be built out to be, so this is what the number is going to be. That's not necessarily the case. So I think we need to take a hard look at those assumptions, just from experience.
Very good. I have a basis of design report that does quantify where the additional flows are assumed.
That'd be great.
Plus some of the updated cost estimates for the not only the force main, but for the Webster station itself. So I could get those to you again, Bob.
That would be excellent. Thank you. And I will make a note on my CIP that 2.5 isn't valid anymore. Ugh.
Okay, next slide, Jen.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. I just wanted to talk to the committee briefly about the Great Bay total nitrogen general permit. I'm not sure how much you have heard. I know, for instance, Molly's heard this being on the select board, but EPA issued the final total nitrogen permit back in November. The town spent quite a bit of time reviewing the final permit, which was a fairly significant modification over the draft permit that had been issued back in January of last year. And we had participated in the public comment process along with many other municipalities and other stakeholders. And EPA did take those comments seriously. They did go back and do a fairly major revision to the draft permit. So what we received in November in the final permit is a much more realistic permit, especially for the town of Exeter. It's still a permit that is addressing nitrogen at the wastewater treatment plant and in non-point source or stormwater nitrogen. The levels that they're talking about for the town of Exeter, it's 106 pounds per day, which is an annual average. And currently, with our new facility, we're able to meet that. So it's an appealing permit to the town for that reason. And it's also an opportunity to work with the other communities in the region to continue to reduce nitrogen in the best, most appropriate ways. And so we have to sign on to this. It was an opt-in type of permit, believe it or not. It's a little bit unique, but our deadline to opt into that permit was April 1st. And so we had been meeting with the select board. Apologize, we couldn't get to you earlier than the timing allowed, but the select board did authorize us to sign on to that, the general permit. And we'll be issuing that notice of intent within about a week. We certainly want to have it in well in advance of the April 1st deadline. But there's another aspect to the permit too. The three largest communities, Portsmouth, Rochester, and Dover, have developed an intermunicipal agreement that would allow all of the communities to work together on several of the facets that have to do with water quality monitoring, with the tracking of nitrogen, tracking and accounting of nitrogen, the outlining a plan for reducing nitrogen, and even kind of the beginnings of looking at how a TMDL, which is a total maximum daily load, how that could be approached. And we need to submit a plan to EPA by July 31st that actually outlines how those approaches are going to be made. Now, the intermunicipal agreement is it's something that the Attorney General's office had reviewed and approved as far as content and just general form. I believe at this point, Dover and Rochester had signed on, and Newington had signed on. I believe Portsmouth may now at this point. I've lost track over the last week, but I know they were going before their city council. And our select board did authorize us to sign into the IMA. There are a few things that we still want to iron out. It's a little bit challenging. Again, it's a very unique process where we've had the legal representatives involved sitting at the table developing the IMA. It hasn't been the technical people, which is more our approach, right? So we do have a few things that we still want addressed, but we intend to be signing on to that IMA by April 2nd. There would be a convening meeting of the that group that signs on in April, and getting our sleeves rolled up and really working on the adaptive management approach for dealing with nitrogen in Great Bay. So it's been an exciting time. It's been a lot of effort on the part of the town staff, on the part of we do have a legal representative and our technical teams, and working with the other communities too to try and hammer out what are the best approaches. And I think it's fair to say that not everybody is going to see it the same. Each municipality is going to have a unique position and a unique approach and unique concerns, but we have to be able to put aside some of those differences in order to work collaboratively, in order to really push forward and make some inroads on nitrogen reduction. Town of Exeter has done a fantastic job, and I don't think anybody would second guess our efforts in making the improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. Our discharge is significantly lower in nitrogen. Newmarket has similarly done the same level of effort, and the city of Portsmouth has spent close to $100,000 on their improvements. So I know that there are improvements that have been made, but we're still trying our best to track those. We're still trying to identify the best non-point source reductions, the lowest hanging fruit, so that we're not just doing things because we're told to do them. We want to make sure that they make sense for us, for the town of Exeter, but we want to advance and make sure that we're staying on the ahead of the curve, or on the curve with everybody else as far as making these improvements. So this is more of an update, like I said, than getting into the nitty gritty. Some of you may be more familiar with the permit than others, but it is a unique approach. And I think when you look at where we would be if we didn't sign on to the permit, we would be continuing to operate under our administrative order. Our permit is expired, and as soon as EPA came around to reissuing permits, we would be at a limit of technology, which would be 3 milligrams per liter. And at least this is going to afford us some time to develop plans that will make more sense, and I think will give us time to also look at the responses in the receiving waters that, I think everybody understands those. When you remove as much nitrogen as we have been with our wastewater treatment plant, there are sinks in the environment. It's not an instantaneous change in the receiving waters. It takes time. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best to figure out how much more we have to remove versus just going to limited technology. I think we'd done an exercise, and Paul can probably remind me what those numbers were, but we had done an exercise. And Bob, I know you were at some of those meetings where we looked at designing the plant to go to 3 milligram per liter effluent level, and it was expensive. I think it was another $10 to $12 million effort to get to that level, and I'm not sure that it's warranted at this point in time. So with that, I'd just like to leave it there and answer any questions people may have. I know it's getting late for you all, and I don't want to go on ad nauseum, which I can, about these things. So
any questions from committee members?
What limits of the plant is the plant meeting now, concentration wise?
So we had designed for a 5 milligram per liter. That was our target. We had to get below an 8 milligram per liter. We were concerned with only going that low. It wasn't that much more expensive to go to 5. So we designed to a 5. And we have been consistently meeting that. We're very close. Again, we're below what we're required for the permit. But it's as you know, Ben, it can be challenging. It's still a new facility for us. Dialing in things like adding carbon when we may need to add carbon, that's still new to us. We haven't been practicing that extensively, but the operators are doing a really fantastic job, and it's really super fine tuning at this point. I know Newmarket is a year ahead of us as far as having their facility up and running. And so they've had a little bit more time, and we're working closely with them, exchanging ideas and making sure that we're figuring out what else we can be doing before we, say that it's time to move on to a 3 milligram per liter plant. I don't think we're there yet.
It's a big change from lagoons, for sure.
Oh, huge change. Yes. Yep.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, without belaboring the time frame of the meeting here, Jen, but is there, is DES looking for something in particular? I mean, between the larger towns around the Bay, I mean, pick a number. We've spent probably in excess of $150 million in the last 5 years collectively. And I got to believe water quality has been positively impacted significantly in the river. I'm not exactly clear. I get why they want us to all work together, and that would be a stick, as it were. But are they looking for anything? Do you get a sense they're looking for anything in particular that we should be going towards? Because this, in a way, sort of smacks of the initial discussions on I&I, where they wanted us to spend $40 million, and we were able to get by with a fraction of that and still make some significant headway. I mean, I'm reluctant to look at moving targets like this.
Well, it's
nervous, I guess.
Yeah. So it's not just New Hampshire DES. It does include EPA, and it does include other stakeholders. They're looking at some parameters around nitrogen concentration itself. In the first iteration of this general permit, it was 100 milli. Oh God, I'm going to forget my units now. It was 100 kilograms per hectare per year. And that equated to a very low nitrogen concentration that was going to be almost impossible for all of us to meet. They've backed away from that somewhat, but I think there's still a need to identify what the concentration should be. They're also looking at sentinel species like eelgrass and eelgrass recovery, eelgrass health, and some of those other receiving water issues. So it isn't just nitrogen alone. It is the other, whether it's eelgrass or shellfish, flats, clam, and oyster, things of that nature.
Has there been any discussion on time frame, like outside of them wanting us to get together and sit down at a table? Do they want us to achieve something by some time frame?
Well, this is a 5-year permit, just like most of their permits. So there's a 5-year cycle to it.
Right.
And yes, there would be, there are milestones in this that we would need to complete this report and start working on the highest or the hot spots, if you will. We'd have to continue. We have been tracking nitrogen in the bay. We'd have to continue with those efforts. The TMDL and the nitrogen load reductions, there's not specific timelines. Initially, in the first draft, there were very specific, you had to remove X percent by year Y. That's not in here right now, but where it is only a 5-year permit, I think it's reasonable to assume that in the next iteration or the next round, the next 5-year permit, there probably will be specific removal requirements.
Okay. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, thanks, Jen, for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's a capacity analysis item on here.
Yeah, I'll talk to you really quick about it, Bob, because I know what you just said earlier is, and I don't want to belabor capacity. So what I just want to be able to show is some of the sewer capacity issues that we've been able to do a desktop study on, and with the funding that we received yesterday, we're going to expand on that and actually look into some of these. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to share a little map.
Okay.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so what I would like to show you and focus in on, so there's these red line, well, what you see in green is our complete sewer system across town. And as we get questions about future expansion or projects that come into town, we wanted to be a little bit more in front of what our capacity actually is. And just looking at some of our sewer capacity analysis is showing some key points here. And as you can see where my cursor is over at the Leary Court, this would be taking the flow from like the McDonald's and the Hannafords, and it actually doesn't come down all the way to Portsmouth Ave. It takes a right and goes through the Downing Court, Leary Court area to come across to the Webster Station. And this is what Paul was alluding to earlier. Due to some of the expansion propositions on this side of town, between the hospital, Holland Way, and some other developments that we've been asked about, not only is the station's going to be an issue, some of the piping would surcharge in these areas. So I'm just trying to make people aware. Another key point is over here on Hampton Road and then High Street cross-country lines. The cross-country line in High Street is, if you all remember, the big sewer break we had right there at High Street and Gilman Lane, and right there, that's where all the cross-country sewer comes from. Stratham Industrial Park, Hampton, part of Hampton Road, Hampton Falls Road, anything up there, all travels through these lines. So these lines also get surcharged due to when high flows are current. And there's been some expansion propositions from Lent to see if they can continue expanding. So what we're going to do, just to finish up, what we're going to do is with the $20,000 that we've been allotted this year, we're going to kind of make sure that some of these slopes are correct and some of these sizes of these pipes are actually true, so that we can have better capacity knowledge of our system, so that when we are asked questions of can future development fit, we'll have better knowledge. So just wanted to kind of let you know that real quick.
Thank you, Matt.
So
presumably at the end of this year, we would have, we'd be able to confirm some of these limitations and develop a plan on how to fix them.
Yes.
Any questions from the committee? Okay, thanks again, Matt. Is that it, Jen? Anything else?